Pottery Workshop, Part 3 with Joe Leach, Melrose High School art instructor and creator of Dunganrock Pottery.
First of all, center the clay, center the pot. Another way to do this is to hold a pencil against here or your finger, and whenever it touches, then stop the wheel and move it away from you slightly. That takes too long. This is easier. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. Fasten the pot down so it doesn't slide sideways. Where it's uneven, push the clay underneath so it doesn't wobble too much, bounce around. The clay pads I'm putting pretty soft clay too, so you can't be too hard on the pot. Okay, finger in the center then, so you have a relationship with the volume of the pot, and your finger on the tool. And we're going to decide maybe a little bit wider this time because that curve isn't as sharp as the one we had over here. We've got a target to shoot for. The pear pitter is a nice tool. It was used in the pear pitting. The reason it's called a pear pitter, it was used in industrial canning out west, and it was designed to take the seed pod of the pear out, and this part was designed to take the stem out. They've long gone mechanical, but potters found out it's just a real useful tool. You have this nice large curve here for carving, like I'm doing on this. You have a nice flat edge here, so you can carve flat surfaces like so. Or if you want to get in a small place, you have this short curve on that side. So it's actually three tools in one. Careful now so you don't go through. This is the last of the pot to dry, so it's more vulnerable. And the others, make a sharp, crispy edge there. Angle, and then burnish. Take the little sharp edges off, or when they fire, and then sand the pot. When they fire, the sharp edges will fire very sharp. You don't want that scratching your counter. Take the pads off, and then we'll take a look at it. Nice strong foot there. Sets down. Feels good. Left-handed and right-handed. And we haven't had to add anything to the clay. We could decorate it by carving designs on the outside, nice flat surface. It's too late now, it's too dry to add clay to it, even a handle. It would be too dry to put a handle out here, but we can carve into it. Now the carving or the graffiti on this pot is leather dry. It's starting to turn a little white along this edge. It won't give anymore. If I squeeze it, it's rigid, but it's still that dark color and there's still a lot of moisture in it. This is just exactly the right time then to carve into it. And one design you can use is to use your pear pitter on the side like this and drag and scoop the design out like so in a wheat pattern with a flick of the wrist. And you can do this with very little practice. And we have a wheat pattern there. See it? And then if I take the back end of the pin and push it, it'll make thick and thin thick and thin lines. I can drag a line down here, and then by pushing it, I can get wheat-like leaves and grasses. Brush off the fuzzies, and there we go. Okay, we've got some cruets. We've got some cruets here to put handles on. And what I'm going to do is take a piece of clay, pat it down tight, get all of the air bubbles out of it, and pound it into a carrot so that it's tapered. We have thick and thin. The cruets that I'm going to put them on are about, let's say a quart, maybe a little bit less of a quart. So the size of the pole or the size of the handle will have to relate to the width of this lip. First of all, I'm going to take this sharp edge off the bottom of the pot where it was trimmed from the wheel. Maybe tap that in just a little bit so it doesn't bow out and rock. I'm going to sign it right now while I got the chance. Always sign your pots. Always sign your pots. Okay, then I'll take the pin and I'm going to score this along there, and then visually I'm going to try to let my eye see that handle come out, and perhaps right at the peak, right where that curve starts down again, we'll attach that handle in there. So I'll score that too, and I'll put water in that in those scratch marks. I've got three pieces here to do. That water's cold. And I'll pull that down again. Now every kid in Stearns County ought to be able to catch on to this technique. Keep pulling that, coaxing that clay down into a taper so that it's tapered this way, gets narrower this way, and it also gets narrower that way. Then when we bend that, it'll make a nice graceful curve as we put it onto the pot. So I'm going to pull that down a little bit thinner. We don't want too thin a handle, a nice substantial handle to grab a hold of. And then lay it down here, and I'll cut it off about here. And then we'll do another one. We got 4 of them. We got 4 of them to do, Chuck. So we will put those out on the board, and they can stiffen up just a little bit, just like bread dough. And then it needs time to rest or to gather itself, Chuck. It needs time to gather itself here, so it can be doing that while we're pulling the rest of them. This takes a little practice, so you don't dig your fingers into the clay. That was a little bit wider because we're going to do a pitcher with a wider top on it. This clay is almost too dry. I see it's starting to whiten up on the top. It's almost too dry to put a lid on or a handle on it. So if we get it wet and then get it into the wet box or cabinet, it'll even out, and then we can take it out after the handle and the pot. See, the pot is stiff now. The clay won't give. I'm going to put some water in those little scratch marks, the little scoring marks that I made. And that'll help even the clay out. And then we'll take the first handle we pulled. I'm going to pound a little dent with my knuckle in there, a little concave surface, so I get a flange and have a little bit of extra clay that I can push against and get it up to on the clay. We have to seal that all the way around. Otherwise the air will get in there it'll shrink and just fall off the pot, or it'll crack, pull away. We got it joined on. Being careful not to distort this too much. All right, this is a small pitcher, so I can pick it up in my hand. I'll lubricate it with fresh water again, and then straighten it out. Get it straight, get all the kinks out of it. Then I take my finger and make a groove along here like so. Take the hand and wipe all of the slip, all those sharp edges off, because they'll fire. They'll fire sharp. And then I'm going to let it curve up, join it down here, and then pinch off the excess clay. Pinching it off like that pushes it on too, so if you have a rather soft pot, you can just leave that for a while and then join it or mush it on to the place so you have a smooth joint there. And we got one pitcher done, or one cruet, I should say. We'll score the next one again now. And down here to about the place where the curve starts to go back down again, right at the top. The curve, put some water in, help equalize the moisture in here, and push the new one on again. Seal it all the way around. Wet it down, lubricate it with fresh water so you don't get, if you have any dry spots in there, they'll stick, and all of a sudden you'll end up with the clean air. Another thing you don't want to do is to get a hump down in here. You want it to taper even all the way down. If you get a knob on the end, pinch it off and start again. I'm going to put a couple grooves in. It makes the edges look narrower and leaves a volume of clay here. So you got a strong handle. When you put it in the sink, you won't break it. And then we'll hold it horizontal. Bring it out so you get a nice curve, nice graceful curve that complements the shape of the pot. And then pinch off the excess. All of this goes back into the pug mill to be used again. And we've got fluid number 2 done, fluid number 3. Get that sharp edge off it. If this clay were to fire, that sharp edge would just tear up a countertop or a kitchen table like nobody's business. And we don't want that. Do we, Mr. Bauer? We don't want that to happen, do we? Huh? You want to scratch your mother's table? No, he doesn't know what I'm talking about. Does he know what anyone's talking about? Okay, concave, little dent there so we get enough clay to push up onto the pot. This is almost getting too dry. I don't know if we'll be able to save these or not. They'll probably crack. Probably crack off. Again, pull the kinks out of it. Make sure it's tapered. Make sure it's even. Put some grooves in it. Leave a groove in the center. Wipe off the excess slip. Make it curve. Let it stick out a little bit more than what you want it, because it's going to shrink in. Be a little bit small. Made this so we can get three fingers under there. And number 3 is done. This goes very quickly once you get a system. Once you get the system, this is a little bit wetter pot. I just stuck my finger through the into the side of it. And we'll put that one right stick, an old toothbrush to carry the water, and a pear cutter for this. A little water in there. Join that on there. Yeah, there's all kinds of kinkies in there, so we'll get them straight. Get them straightened out. The handle coming down straight. Some grooves in there so it looks graceful, looks thinner than it actually is. Wipe the slip off. And then join it to the pot. Be careful now so I don't push the side of the pot in. Okay, this time we're going to pull a horizontal handle. I was holding those pitchers up and letting gravity do most of the work. But there will be times when you have an extra large pot or a pot that's too wet to hold in your hand. It'll cave in. So there are times when you have to pull a horizontal handle. And you do it basically the same way. Get started the same way. Pull out a carrot of clay, taper it, and cut it where you're going to make the widest part. That wants to be a little bit thicker there. Where you're going to join it on, you want a little excess clay there. And now we'll go to the pot and again score it. Add a water in there. That water will stay wet and give the outside of the handle a chance to dry or to stiffen up like this. This pot's pretty soft yet. I can just barely lift it without distorting, but I couldn't pick it up. It would cave in. It's so thin right in here that it would cave in. I mean, I keep drying my hands off. And I'll pound the carrot in here again. And I'll have to stand up. Do this. Need a little water in there. I want to pull this one. Straight up. I'm going to support the inside so I don't cave it in. Join it all around gently. Make sure that there's a seal there. It isn't going to come off in my hand. And then with a little bit of water, I'm going to lubricate it. Now I'm pulling out and then catching it with my hand like this as I come off. So I'm making the pull out, and if I do it fast enough, the clay won't drop down. I'm catching it in my hand. I want to pull it up a little bit more, shape it so it's a little bit of an arc. Put the grooves in this way. Gather it underneath, support it here, bring it down, and join it back to the pot. The pot is real soft here. I'm going to pinch it. That'll push it. That pinching action pushes it into those little cuts. With my finger behind the handle here, I'm pushing out, and there we have. There we have that. Now, I don't know if I can lift that off of that. I lift it off the pot. I can make a tip canister out of it. Take it off there and I'll set it just for a second. Get it dry. Clean that here. And get the angle I want to tip it at. And just start tapping it down until it's going to sit flat. Squeeze in a little bit on here. And now out here in the bottom, I'm going to push that out. Clay remembers. And if you don't push it down, if you don't force it, it'll remember to go back into round, and then this will rock. And you don't want it to go chasing your pot all over the cupboard every time you get something out of it. So I'm going to push the bottom gently out and make a foot from the inside, and then press the edge flat. Take away the sharp edge there. And now we have a tin canister. We take a spoon now, we can go into it, gather whatever we want, flour, popcorn, whatever, and we can exit holding the spoon and whatever. Where we had to go up, it's pretty hard to get the spoon to tip wide enough in that mouth to it. By pushing a foot out here, the pot will stay flat and sit flat in the cover. Wall. So each pot now has to be turned over, and the same thing done to it as basically as you did when we started throwing. First thing we do is get the pot to go into the center of the wheel again. Again, the centering process. I'm letting it touch this thumb here, and then tapping it into the center. If you get real good at this, you don't have to use your thumb. I have to use my thumb. I'm going to fasten it down to the wheel head with a little pad of clay, so it doesn't slide sideways on me. It won't hold it down to the bat, but it will keep it from shifting a little bit. And then with our parapitter, get all of the dry chunks off so they don't gouge into the pot. I'm going to let my eye look at this curve right in here. I don't know how thick this is. I know about how thick the center is, but I don't know exactly. So I have to rely on looking at this curve right here coming up, and I see it probably joining the top right about there. So what I'll do now is consider all of this waste, and we'll trim that off. The pots are leather dry, and you get that nice apple peeling that can be put back into the pug mill because it's still got enough moisture in it to be worked. I'm going to make it quite as thin as I first anticipated. Smooth and even out the sides of the bowl, and then we'll cut the inside of this out. We're leaving a nice ridge there. So when the plate is set down on a surface, or the bowl is set down on a surface right here, it has the strength of the clay, but not the weight. And it gives it a little bit more of a finished look. Okay. I'm going to burnish that rim so it doesn't scratch the table, and then of course we'll sign them afterwards. Each piece should have a signature, and it is like signing a check, and this is mine. Now, what I've done to the bottom of the bowl is provided a foot or a place to set it up off the surface of the pot. So you see this curve coming in here as if it floats above the surface of the table or the cupboard or wherever you happen to be sitting. And this size makes a very nice salad bowl, spring salads, and we have the right time of the year for that. This is through now, and look at the difference between, look at how much heavier this one looks. The whole bowl looks heavier. And it's even farther away from the camera than the other one. Look how much heavier it looks with all of this clay down here in the bottom. Look how light this looks. Look how thin and light this other one. This other one. It looks as if it's sitting above the surface. That foot just raises it up a little bit. Okay, the last one here. This is the size of bowl that my kids use for cereal bowl. How about at your house? Huh?
No one eats.
And she eats hers? We used to have to buy it by, we'd contract for a truckload of Cheerios or Sugar Snaps. Do you eat a lot of cereal?
Frosted Flakes.
Like eating fodder.
What?
No, my kids, one set of my kids' grandparents came from a farm. Maybe they had some grazers in there. Okay, remember, touch the center so you know where the volume of the pot is. You can feel it. If there's any change, you'll pick it up in your hand right away. And then touch the tool with the other finger. That way you make one tool out of two. Cutting that in sharp there to say, hey, this is not part of the pot, that it is indeed that little extra. But I'm cutting the inside part now so that it will line up with this out here, and it'll look like the foot has been added to it. All of the clay now that I've gathered in this can go back into the pug now to be remixed with water. So as long as it isn't fired, we don't waste any clay. And there's the last one. A little bit of an air bubble there, but the glaze can be rubbed into.